Yeah, whole prof here. And why the headlamp? Well, we're finally getting this computer out of here. Cleaned it out, wiped it down with a tub of towel, and I had a sticky note that was up there about having just upgraded it to 23H2. And well, 24H2's been out for a good long while. So, updated the BIOS to the latest one available. It fixes a bunch of issues with that AMD found, especially only a 7700 in there. A lot of those fixes are for the 9000 and enabling the higher power profile for the 9000. But since it still hasn't gone out after having to troubleshoot the original build that was in there, rebuilding it, a couple months in, having the motherboard go out, having it come back. Also, prior to that, dealing with some data recovery, virus removal, and like I said, hardware failure in the old set of hardware that was in here. And just life in between there, But it's gonna get out of here. That is why the headlamp. We wanted to get that thing nice and clean. Right now, we're just secure erasing that SSD that's in there and starting over from scratch. You're like, why secure erase the SSD? Well, that starts the SSD over from scratch, performance-wise. Basically as if it's a new drive, rather than one that has all this junk built up. Reads, writes, partitions, etc. In the case of that build, it goes the way that I recommend it, because even many builds ago, that person followed my guides, and that's why a lot of that stuff is carried over from the previous build, even if the main motherboard has died. It's got a boot SSD. In this case, we're reusing a 970 Evo Plus. And then it's got a games / temporary SSD. I think it's a terabyte probably in there. Might be an even older drive that we carried over. Still, you don't really need NVMe drives for games unless you have a couple of very specific ones like Ratchet and Clank, and other ones that are direct storage ready. Otherwise, the only reason I went to it is because with my really fast fiber internet, I was actually running into the SSD being the limit on the speed on how fast I could download and update Call of Duty. And I'm like, I never thought I'd see the day that would happen. But I run like I'd call it, I don't know if it's a second or third generation SATA 6 gigabit SSD. It's a Crucial, I believe it's an M500, not an MX500 or an M500. 960 gig, got it for a screaming deal, $180 for a 960 gig. That was around that same time. I want to say you could get a 500 gig Samsung 840, not the Evo, guys, not the Pro, 840. And then 500 gig that a little bit prior to this, I might be wrong on my times here, but was $300, and that was considered a good price. So the fact that I got a 960 gig for $180 direct from Crucial, it is like actually died, or I thought it had died at least 3 times now, but we've always been able to bring her back. So until that thing, and it's just games, right? It's just lit in my Steam library. Until that thing actually shits the bed, we're gonna keep bringing her back. I actually had to rebuild the partition table and a bunch of shit last time. Like a SATA data cable went bad while loading Call of Duty. The only thing that corrupted on the drive was my Call of Duty install. Yeah, crazy stuff. But yeah, sadly that drive does restrict the download and install speed of Steam. So I do have certain games on my C drive now. The HTPC actually has always, like, since its rebuild, has always had an NVMe drive because I knew I was going to play Ratchet and Clank when it came out. And that, like, for the longest time, it actually required, they actually waited to release it until you could run direct storage in, like, with a hard drive, not just an NVMe SSD. They're not saying they recommend that. It's just they didn't want to launch a game that requires direct storage. Like, literally the game will not function properly without it. I don't want to launch a game like that without the ability for anybody who buys it to play it. Certain aspects of the game would greatly suffer if you had to do that. But, oh, this is funny. So FedEx, right? Then we have a UPS envelope reinforcing the FedEx envelope. I find that hilarious. But yeah, that guy's getting, and I feel bad about that build, guys. I really do. Close friend. Especially when it comes to that data recovery and virus removal and stuff like that. I don't want to know how much you would have had to pay for it, but would have been cheap, that's for sure. But you know, with how long it's taken me, granted there's been numerous setbacks. If you guys have seen what is by far my most popular short about how people always complain about front panel connectors on computer cases, that has actually been solved since 2017. It's just that brands, not even motherboard brands have actually supported it basically since around there, because it was part of the Intel spec. It's been case companies. Just the first one that I know of, which was in the S340, which is that S340 that I shot the video on, from NZXT, that launched, or a version of it launched in 2017. I think the case might have actually even been sooner, like the original version. Fantex, I want to say, came shortly behind there. I know, like, the Lian Li, was it Lancool, has we got a couple little boxes in here. Do any of you know what this would be? One's partially open. See, this is a 4052, all three of those. These are all on the right side. These are all 4044s. But yes, when it comes to PC builds, if you're not going to run a separate drive for your games, which I do highly recommend, because you don't need, like I said, for most games out there, it just affects, in my case, do I need an NVMe drive for download speeds? No, you can just wait. But it feels kind of bad to get 5 gig fiber internet and have your when's the guy that you thought SSD would limit your internet speed? SSDs, even SATA SSDs, are the thing you upgrade to, right? Limiting my download speeds in Steam because of it being an older SATA SSD. What guys are wondering, it's not just because they're 6 gigabit. That is the connection speed. Most latest generation, we're talking like 850 Pro, I think there was technically an 860 Pro. I may or may not have some of those. I'm trying to remember. But like those later gens, like even an 840 Pro didn't hit, like those high-end ones would hit 550 read and 500 write. if you go back a generation, like we're talking 840 Pro, or even back a generation earlier than that, things would kind of cap out around 500 read and 400 write, and that's megabytes per second. Theoretically, 6 gigabit is, and that's sequential 4K speed, not random IOPS and stuff like that, right? So some people are like, how can your 5 gig internet speed be faster than your SATA 6 gigabit SSD? It's not that simple. That's how. So let's take a look here. Since this one was already open, this is a 4552. And what this is, some of you may already know or may think it looks familiar. And it would, / should. This is a newer version of my recommended wire cutter for cable managing PCs and other small electronics. And what I mean by newer version is it is what they call a thin head, and I thought it might be a flush cut. Looking at it now that I have it in person, it is not a flush cut, but it is a near, like I would consider that a near flush. That is much more flush than your average wire cutter. And for those that don't know, here's what I usually use. This is what they normally would call like an acorn head one. These are made by, this is a 4046 and this is a 4052, right? So these are both done by Pro America Tools, made in the USA. The Pro America branding, I don't know if that's just the consumer line from this brand or they just happen to sell to consumers, but their biggest market that they sell to apparently is government contracts. To like, maintain military vehicles and stuff like, military equipment, and because all their stuff meets whatever, acquisition requirements are needed and stuff like that. Now you're like, why are you getting that sort of too? Here, you can actually see the grips on this are way skinnier too. I don't know if anybody can tell that. But the grips, because this left guy is meant for, it's got the smaller head, right? Much smaller head, and it is, like I said, it's not a flush cutter, but that is a near flush. You can see that there. Also double-sided, whereas their standard sort of acorn head did go with the kind of, what do you want to call, knife and anvil style, where only the top one is sharpened. And you might be like, no, that's just yours, it's made wrong. I have like 5 of them. If you watch any of my tool bag reviews, my on-site repair tool bag review, they're included in there. I might be wrong. Looks like the design on these has changed over time, because these are double-sided, right? But if you look at the grips here, these are much thicker grips. These grips are not as thin as these grips though. Still. But this one is double-sided, and it is a 4046. Now I'm gonna have to go and check my other tool bag. This is my original 4046. This one is definitely double-sided. The head looks a little bit smaller too on the left. Interesting. See, I'm finding stuff out as I make this video. I'll grab some other examples here for you guys. These are still marked up from my previous job. Green was their color, yellow, as always, is mine. Here's my third set. Has the same thick grips as my original pair. Very interesting. Maybe this one does have a very slight bevel on it, on my original. I don't know if it's going to show that because of the angle. Like, it might have a very slight. Either way, this one works fine. Maybe look out for that. Like I said, it does look like these have changed over time because I've bought in more. This pair is with the thicker grips like my originals. As soon as this pair came through as good, because this is the pair that is downstairs on my PC building workbench, I bought another pair a couple months later that for my at-home tool bag upstairs. So we've got some more that I'll be using the comparison here. This is the main and the big comparison is that green guy. We got all kinds of stuff here. But yeah, it looks like they might have changed their design a little bit over time in regards to these. But once I found out they had ones with a smaller head and so for example, this head versus that one. Let's do a 2x comparison here. So a smaller head on there for really getting in there and snip, snip, snip. Great for zip ties. Great for cutting little wires. And you might be like, why? Why extended, right? Why extended? Well, I can tell you that ever since picking up one of these, and these you could get at Menards, the one thing I will warn you if you buy these Master Force ones from Menards is back when I was using these, if you're using them professionally, like you're actually building computers on the regular, like I would build at minimum at work when I was at Geek Squad, one a month. That's at the bare minimum. Now I'd be rebuilding stuff all the time for clients and that sort of stuff. Then at home, I'd usually do at least one a month as well. You're like, oh, that's not big numbers. Yeah, and some months I would have multiple a week I would be doing. The big issue with these, also, because I like these so much, I sent a pair over to auxiliary who used to do PC builds for Puget Systems. I believe he does their social media now. And or does he might have, I think he might also do like small form factor systems on the side now. And because I like these so much, because you're like, well, why would this be any different than a normal cutter? We can use the Tsunoda ones as an example. So these are like an ultra flush, actually like bevel. I've done a video on these. For cutting cable ties, not any wires. Actually, gifted the pair to my dad. But they're just for wire cutters. Now this handle is a little bit smaller, I guess. We got some other sizes. This only the smallest one knowing with the Tsunodas is spring operated. So here's another one that'd be very similar to one of these, right? Maybe a little bit bigger. The head's definitely bigger. You know, this is pretty common too. But when you're reaching into a PC to like get around cable management and stuff to snip something, or to just kind of get like root into where you've done cable management, it is really nice to have this extended bit on the cutter like that, right? Rather than this guy here. Freeze my fingers, right? We're cutting. You are that far away from what you're cutting, right? You're like right on it. Whereas this, you've got, what, a couple inches there? So that is why I really like these. And these are the first ones I ever saw. Master Force actually has a whole line of these that have pliers. They have the flat cutters. This is a diagonal cutter, so I forget what those are, like the straight cutters, or the where it kind of looks like a nail cutter, or a nail puller. They have like a whole line of them. Downside is these are shit. The first thing you should do, and I've seen very people, even professional people, show this: when you get a pair of wire cutters, you close it up. You don't hold super hard, but you just close them up and you see if you can see light through the gap. If you can, it will not cut properly. Okay, it just won't. If you can see light through there, not going to cut properly. I would have to go through an entire rack of these, sometimes 2 racks of them, to get 1 to 3 good ones. And you're like, why would you need 3 good ones? Well, I was buying them for other people because, you know, only Menards at the time that I knew carried these. It's fairly rare to see these extended diagonal cutters. And I really do think they are perfect for like your PC cable management, your small electronics repair. Like I repair my monitor speakers. Having something like this to get in there when you got a bunch of wires around where you don't have to like get the bulk of your hand in with it is super handy. Now I have been using these more and more, and they are really nice for cutting off cable ties as they get them even more flush. And they have like a thing that can pull them tight. Sometimes I'll go and grab for these, but the like how these work is still so freaking nice. And with this extended, and they're you know, like they're spring operated. I still always go for these. I used to have these. You can see like the spring thing on these actually gave out a little bit, so they don't open all the way automatically. This is my I have 2 pair of these, I believe, left, because I stopped buying them. Because within, you can even see the wear on the tip. And this is that wear on the tip, that is from mainly using these for cutting tie wraps. Maybe sometimes like the sort of wires that you would see in computers. Like little thin fan wires, Molex connectors, like that's very thin stranded copper wire. That shouldn't wreck a wire cutter. And yes, for different sizes of wire cutters, if you look at my really nice ones that I use for, you know, like building keyboards and doing small electronics work, they actually have ratings on them for if they can even do solid core, If it's solid and stranded, like which size. I've mentioned it in some of the Nipex where I wish they would have them on there more. So basically, because these were getting so hard to find, also the pricing went up. They used to be $3. At $3, it was maybe like $2.99. You know, basically $3. And we're talking, this is probably better part of 10 years ago now. Maybe not 10. I have a video of when I originally switched to these. It's probably current job, back one job. The back one job, I made them buy me a set. That's where you saw the latest with the skinnier handles. And that was for, yeah, so at least 5 years ago now, I made the switch from these to these. These were $3. Then they went to $5 or $6, and I still had the same shitty quality issues where I would have to go through an entire rack of these, and it got worse when it got more expensive. I would have to go to a whole rack and maybe get one. Sometimes I went to Menards and went through like a rack of 10 of these, and every single one you held up to the light would have a gap in the cutter. So what that means is, especially when you're cutting thin things like tire wraps, that basically like you pinch, what ends up happening is you actually cut and you pinch them off and they fall off, is kind of how a diagonal cutter works, right? Because it doesn't go all the way, on a thicker material, you actually might cut it enough that it would cut the wire, right? But a good test is always cutting cable ties, because they're thinner, they're plastic, so they're not as hard. And what'll happen is you'll just put like a little tooth bite into the cable tie and it won't fully cut off. Especially if you have some nice nylon cable ties, not like the cheesy plastic ones. The cheesy plastic ones also just like mush when you do it instead of cut. So I have to go through a whole rack, and they got twice as expensive. So I'm like, there has got to be something better than this. There has got to be. There are a lot of cheap brands on Amazon that are basically, I'm pretty sure, the same OEM out of China, maybe Taiwan. I don't think it even says on here where this is from. That use, from what I can tell, it's like this exact same design with like a thumb thing to prevent your hands from going up here, if that makes sense. Like prevent your fingers from, like, it's got like a flare. They're the same as this or worse. I ordered 2 or 3 of the various different ones, and I do still link them down below because they are dirt cheap, right? You can get like the equivalent of this guy and the equivalent of this guy for less than either of these, like probably half of one of these. So if that's all you can afford, but you really want an extended cutter, go for it. All I say is hold it up to the light. If Amazon sends you one that you can see light through when you go like that, and I'll show you what I mean. Here, we'll take a flashlight. You cannot see light through the cutter. But if I open it up, you can see like a little sliver. See like how you can start seeing slivers of light in there? When you close it down, nothing. Right? If you have it fully closed and you can see light when you hold it up to like a light source or the sun, and you can see light through the cutting thing, send it back, or if you're in person, don't buy it. Grab a different pair of the thing, hold it up to the light. Very simple test you can do. Very, very simple test. And yes, I will still link those Amazon ones, even though I think they're kind of shit, because I use these Master Force ones. You just go through them every, I would say 3, 4, at best 6 months if you're using them regularly. Now, if you're just a hobbyist, PC builder, and you're just using it for your one build or to maintain stuff, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Like I said, I still keep one of those at my current job, and you're like, you work a desk job, why do you have a wire cutter? You never freaking know, guys. I'm just used to having wire cutters around, and if I have an extra, because I don't use those Master Force ones anymore, might as well bring it to work. Yeah, I really like having this extended. You know, like basically instead of being up here holding right onto this little cutter, you got some distance, okay? And up until now, I've had this sort of acorn head one, right? And yes, I should get to, you do pay more for these. They're made in the USA, not saying, oh, everything's better because it's made in the USA. These are not, and they're made like trash. These are like anywhere from $18 to $25. And they're just dip grips. They're nothing amazing, but they always cut. You know what I mean? I have yet to get one that doesn't, when you close the thing, that has light shining through. And that's like why I always like buying Stanley wire cutters. Is Stanley, despite, even if you bought their cheapest brand that you could get at Walmart, at least compared to the Walmart brand, they always made sure their wire cutter cut. You know, like, even if you bought the cheapest, genericest pair, like, you know, like the base entry level Stanley, I carried a pair when I was working at Home Depot to cut strapping off of things. And yeah, I just, because they wouldn't buy me that, they would get me scissors, which cutting strapping off with scissors is, even if you got like the big burlier pair, is kind of a pain in the ass. But a wire cutter does easy work of it. Yeah, it would do it. You know what I mean? So that's why a lot of these, and Masterforce is the store brand of Menards. Like I said, I was purely interested in it because it has this extended neck here, which I think is starting to get a little bit more common on these. These products. I might have even seen a set at Harbor Freight the other week. Didn't really look any more into it. Like I said, the ones on Amazon, I think they're all from the same brand, but there's like various different handles you can get, and they're always on sale. As far as I can tell, that is the same company that makes these for Menards. It'll do you if you want to have this extended plier, but do not want to spend $20 a pop, right? Then over here we have the needle nose, and this is like an extended, not only, like if you see, there's like a double bump. Like, okay, if you see here, this just goes boom, like in. That's normally where your tip would be. It's actually up there. Here, you got like a double bump where it goes bloop, bloop. These same sort of thing, they do have, because they're so skinny and long, they do have a lot of flex to them. Like if you grab something and twist, you will run into like, but they're not made for heavy duty stuff. What these are great for is just fishing shit out of stuff, right? Like, and it does work like this. If you have 3 fingers here and you kind of use this one as like a pointer, then you still have a bit more. Now, one issue I've had with these since getting them has been they're smooth. Now, for a lot of things, for non-marring purposes in PC, or just in using tools in general, having non-serrated jaws so you don't mar what you're working on can be a good thing. But if you need to pull on something and you really give it a proper tug, not so much. But basically, I run these two in. I have them down here next to my PC building area, right? I have these in. Once this turned out to be what I thought it was, because I already had a set of these in both in the basement, by my PC building stuff, and I keep a tool bag up in the closet upstairs in case I just need to do smaller stuff up there, or that was kind of like my to-go bag before I had one for work that was already in the car, and I would grab that and I would have just like the older versions of tools. But this one was it was relatively cheap and ubiquitous that I bought another one and put in there. That's the one that's now at work. This one's still down here, like in case we need another one. Or sometimes you want to cut things that you don't want to like potentially give up your good one on. And this one is a little bit pointier, but now we got this guy that is like I said, it's a much thinner head too. If you look at this side, the new guy is thinner this way as well. So not only is it like more of a pointy head, less of this acorn, It's also a thinner tool, which then makes sense for the thinner grip. Now, like remember, I did show you, I went to go look at my other 2 pair. The one that was bought within a month or 2 after this one, because I wanted to give this thing a good run. Like, is this worth $20 when this was $3 and then went up to like $6? And yes, because this came perfect, cuts way nicer. It just has a standard dip grip, not this big bulky transformer laser pew pew Nerf gun grip. You know, it's just simpler, straightforward. To be truthful, it's nothing crazy, but not many places will make a high quality extended diagonal cutter. And I'd been looking around for a while, and I think I found this brand just randomly on Amazon. And then once I bought a set, bought a pair of these. I was like interested in some other tools. That's when I found this guy. And then I was also researching them a bit. Like, why have I never heard of this brand before? What the heck is Pro America USA? Yada yada yada. But you can see from the dipped handles that these are it's a much lighter, thinner dip because of the weaker, basically because of the thinner nose here. They are a much weaker pliers. So smaller duty handles. This is also, if you look at the side here, the metal on the handle here, this is a much thinner metal than there, because they are a lighter duty. However, what do I mainly do with these? I cut tie wraps, and I cut the small tie wraps. You should not be using the big ones in your computer. Also, for those saying that zip ties are superior in computer building, it depends what you're doing. If you're doing something that needs to be serviced easily, yes. If you are doing literally anything else, apparently I ran myself out of tie wraps. I did do a build with somebody recently, and we used a heck lot of them. I do remember that. But I used the 18 pound or 16 pound, but I use them in 8 inches. I probably have some in my tool bag. Oh, that's where they went, I think. Yeah, I used them for my brother's build. I used them all up, I think. So, I can link these down below. I forget. These are the ones I'm talking about. Those are, I think they're 18 pound. Always get the nice nylon ones. I carry this in my tool bag. That is what I recommend doing your PC with. Most often, and if you haven't custom ordered these, can't get them off of Amazon, you'll often see you can see by the size here. That's a smaller size, hand for scale, big ones for scale. You normally find these in 4 inches, not 8 inches. Like if you go into Walmart and you're like, I need tie wraps, I can't wait for Amazon. Or if you see them come with a computer case, you'll see the 4-inch ones. Those will work 9 times out of 10. I will tell you, if you buy the 8-inch ones, yes, you're cutting off a lot more. But this longer tie wrap, you can do a lot more with. And when cable managing, like getting it up, down, around different parts of your case, I originally found some of those at a truck stop, and loved them because also they were good ones, like proper nylon ones, not the plastic ones, and loved the longer length. And I actually went back there, and you're like, a truck stop? Yeah, they actually had like a rack of all tie wraps. Like it was a square vertical rectangle rack that had just everything from metal tie wraps to the tiniest little tie wraps to the biggest, beefiest tie wraps. Like I got some tie wraps that are like that wide. They're still nylon ones, but they're like that wide. But they're short. They might be 8 inches, right? But they're like thick guys. I've used those for a couple of things. Super useful. Then the other kind I would recommend are these guys, which you normally get in 8 inches, and those are 18 inches, I believe. I might be wrong. Let me grab They're more than 12, that's for sure. 16? 16 inches. I like having the longer tie wrap. This is a 50 pound, I believe. Might be a 40 pound. They're the same size. The pound is actually like how much it takes to like break the tie wrap or get the teeth to slip. I forget which exactly. But it's kind of like gauge of wire. They come in, like the certain poundage ones will come in different, basically like different thicknesses of the plastic. This is what I recommend, and this is what I'll be cutting with this guy. And there will be no problem with that. Even thin wires, most of the thin wires, like your fan cables, your... like I probably wouldn't do like your 14 gauge, you know, like PCI Express power cable or something with this guy, you know, because I have one of these too. But yeah, this will be perfectly fine for the tie wraps. If you're doing the bigger ones, obviously I would probably use a bigger, proper sized wire cutter. I wouldn't even use this guy because with the longer handles, these tend to flex, and that is the one complaint about the extended. If you read the reviews on Amazon for these, like the one complaint people have is like the handles flex, and they do. But also the stuff you're cutting shouldn't require the amount of strength needed to severely, significantly flex the cables. Some reviews said this guy was better than this guy for that. I literally can't see how that could be because this is a much more dainty version in every way than this one. Now, yes, I know this one is beefier than my newer one that we found in one of the other toolboxes, but this one is still quite a bit more dainty than that other one. Let's take a look at what's in these. All these three should be exactly the same. Yep, very thin handles. This one's got a little ping, 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 ping on the spring. This one had a little bit of mush, mush, mush. And that would be stuff, if you were able to buy them in person, that's stuff that you might try them out with and pick your preference. You know, if something was actually deficient on these, since I bought them off Amazon, you can always send them back. Held these up to the light. There is nothing seeing through. And look at how pointy that is. Like, that is super duper nice for getting in there. And our last pair. So it actually feels like a little bit beefier in the... Yeah, it is. I feel like the grips on this one are just it's a little stockier in the neck area right there. Now you can see a lot of these are probably hand ground, to be truthful, but it seems like stockier here. Or maybe, you know, maybe they actually start with something more similar to this thicker guy and then they grind it down. I'm not sure how that works. This guy also not seeing anything through the... Oh, I think this little squishy guy, it's a little squishy. I saw it had a little bit of grease in there. So maybe I just gotta work that out. But yeah, love these. Love having... And these feel lighter in the hand too. The grips are definitely... They're like flatter and wider too. Like they smushed the... See, it's like flatter and wider here. But very happy. Did not know these were a thing. They're not a full flush cut like I thought they might be. I guess you could manually grind them down. It depends what you'd need. Just be aware if you ever do that, the cutting edge becomes even more not as strong. The other thing that you have to count on is that they are also cut on, or they were also sharpened on this side, which these are. You might be able to see there is a cutting edge on that side too. Some only put the cutting edge on this side, so if you ground that flat for like a flush cut, because they're not sharpened on the inside, you would have no blade really anywhere. So you're like, why'd you get 3 of them? Well, how this works now is I basically have my PC building area in the basement, right? I have my personal tool bag that stays up in the office. And then I have my now work tool bag that we've gone over before. And I wanted one of each of these for those because I run one of these in each of those. I don't know if I'm going to run both these and those. We'll have to see how much I prefer this thinner, smaller head on here. I have a feeling that much of what I do with this can be achieved by this guy. I'll keep you guys in the loop, though. The one I normally get is the 4046, and this new thin head, slim head guy is the 4052. Now you might be thinking, but Prof, there are 3 more boxes. Ho, ho, ho. There sure are. There sure are. Yeah, this original one still feels... I don't know. I probably have used it the most, so it feels the most at home for me. But like I said, I have now had this one for probably 5-6 years now, at least. And yes, I used to take this one everywhere because I only had one, right? But even it being my main one, I have still not had to replace it. Versus these, like I said, the one I sent over to, I think it's Auxiliary, he eventually had to replace it because it went dull. I think he tried for a little while, like one of the Amazon ones, but like I said, at least from my experience, they are made even worse than these are. And these, maybe that's because you can't, like on this, when you go to a Menards, you can go and pick these Masterforce and find one of the better made ones, right? With like a pointier tip, make sure that you can't see the light through it, etc., etc. Whereas when you buy off Amazon, I tried with, it was like a blue with a chromed cutter on the front, blue handle. I think I swapped those 2 or 3 times before I just returned it and said, hey, like, nah, you can't get me a good working pair. I just don't want it. Then tried some other ones, and same issues with those. When I saw they basically all came in effectively the same as this. Might be a completely unfinished pair, might be a chrome pair. Some of them will have different grips. They all have the same spring mechanism, from what I could tell. Oh, by the way, this is generally the cheaper way of doing it, is like with the 2 springy things. I have some Craftsman, old Craftsmans that were like that. I would say the spring up towards the head is more preferred for me. But for context, though, we should get into like, here's what I started out with. This is what I use for my soldering, originally, my soldering pliers. And they're still not a bad buy. Like, if you need to go out and you just need, for, like, even for PC cable management, you just need a kit of a, or you're doing soldering and you need a flush cutter and a pliers. Just something to hold stuff, something to pull stuff, something to, this Crescent pair, you can get it at Home Depot. It's not amazing. These are literally like foam, like hardened foam grips. It's a cheap style of flush cut with just like 2 bent pieces together, right? But I ran these when I was first learning how to solder for years and years and years. It wasn't until I cut something that I wasn't supposed to. If you look at these, this one that is bent, it has to get bent back and go over, is a much smaller and can take much less force than this top guy. Well, I cut something I shouldn't have, and that shot across the room. Now, obviously, I bought another pair right away. I believe I gave the pliers away to somebody at some point, because I wouldn't have bought another pair. It might have been Frozen Slate. I might have sent him away when he went off to college with one of these green guys, because we were still using them back then, and my other pair of pliers, so he had something. These are nice and rounded, nice and pointy. not super pointy, and they do have some very slight serrations. I don't even know if we can see that. Yeah, very slight serrations. So like this kit isn't half bad. I want to say at one point it was like $15 or something. Fine for that amount of money. I did go and buy, because I was so used to using these. Like ergonomically, they're actually not bad at all. But I was so used to using these for soldering, I went and bought another pair. But I definitely put some money into getting. You can even see how, because these are so old, that's the original color, is this more salmon color, and it's like a lighter pink on this side, because that's the side that's been facing like the window, so it's been getting UV on it. You know, if you need a pair and like you can't wait for Amazon and you need to do something today, this is not a bad set. Whether it's soldering, PC repair, small electronics work, this will get you there. It's a smaller, you know, like sort of needle nose pliers that is ground down to be quite pointy, and it is a true flush cut, a full flush cut. These do say made in the USA on them. I don't know if the ones that currently, like I said, they're like fine. Like I did a lot of my early keyboard builds, prototyping, you know, like Phantom RGB work with these. It wasn't until I was building keyboards for others that I upgraded my equipment, because this was, you know, good enough. It wasn't until I had to like produce more that I started getting better tools, you know. And also I snapped off that one thing there. One thing you can do is, if you're going to like a Menards or a Harbor Freight and you pick up one of these, get yourself a super duper cheap flush cutter. This is what I now use to cut things I'm not supposed to. One of the things that is fairly common to cut that I'm not supposed to, that I used to do in the past all the frickin' time, is fan headers always used to be 3-pin. Often they were closed. They weren't like the newer ones that just have the clip and then you got 3 pins. There's actually a housing around it. But this was during a transition period where even ASUS said, "Oh, with X79 refresh, hey, you can see that this is also UV stained." Okay, see it's very red on this side. This is the side towards the wall. We actually start getting a little bit pink on the side that is facing out, because I have to put them this way because this spring gets in the way. That's a super cheap way of doing the spring. It's super powerful too. It's like boing, boing. These actually come with a cap to protect it. I don't know where this cap went. I just throw them up my wall on a magnetic rail. For my one, because I do keep a pair of these cheap ass flush cutters. Like these are like $1 to $2. Shit, at least when I've bought them in the past, they were. Who knows with current tariffs and all that nonsense. But in all of my kits, and even at my current job, sometimes you just need. I've even used these for hangnails before, like because they are a flush cutter, right? But yeah, these are like super duper cheap, super duper shitty. So if you were to break these, which I have done, and you can tell like the jaw is way bigger. Like I and the spring is so much heavier than these Crescents. I wouldn't want to do like PCB work and soldering with this. I mean, you could if you had to. Like if this is all you had. Like when we were in Geek Squad, what they provided us for like a wire cutter was either like a big boy, like what was it, an 8-inch, or this like one of these cheap pieces of shit. So yeah, I guess you go with this then. But if you're picking up something like this, or like, you know, like this size or bigger, always grab one of these. So what I would do is I would actually cut off the housing, because the 4th pin of a PWM fan, you can voltage control PWM fans. Some of them it does wreck them, so watch out for that. Like the early Noctuas, it could. That's why I wanted to buy either the voltage controlled one or the PWM controlled ones. Later ones have low voltage regulating stuff with them where you can actually voltage control them and PWM control them at the same time. But you know, this is, and basically what you would do is you would chomp out the side where that 4th pin would need to go and stick out of this thing. Well, in order to do that, I would need to get this very flush on that plastic housing, then chomp, and then you go over the other side, chomp, and then you break the tab off, and it would work great every time. That's not really something a true wire cutter is designed to do. Or if you need to cut other stuff flush, like I said, I've used these for hangnails before. They just ground a piece of metal flush and it's sharpened on the opposite side. It's nothing crazy. They're cheap. Remember to not lose the cap. Chuck them in your bag. They'll save your butt. If you don't need like a proper pair of flush cutters on the regular, if you do, go and buy a proper pair. Like I haven't really done too much testing with the Icon pair, but those are like bigger 7-inch, I want to say, ones because they're based on the snap-ons. Otherwise, I have Lindstrom for the smaller ones for doing PCB work and small electronics work and keyboard building and repair and that sort of stuff. Another option that is cheap, that kind of lines up, and this is what I managed to get my previous job to get me. And these are actually not half bad. They're not by any means amazing, but they're not half bad. They're kind of, I don't know if I would consider these a step up from, the grips are nicer than the Crescent. Yeah, I probably would consider these a step up. And these are the, well, it's the CHP, but I think it's the Vera. Made in Italy, copper wire, used safety glasses, cuts 1.3 millimeter copper wire, max cut. TR30, and this is the TR2007. I think you can get a cheaper pair of these now, even. Let me look this up real quick. Oh geez, I guess the phone's getting low. Michael. Hakko. They're the Hakko ones. They're $13. You can get the CHP 170s, which are the micro cutters. They're even smaller of a head than these have. That's why I didn't want them. I wanted the medium style. Because if this is medium, imagine how small the micros are. But the micros are as low as $8. These are the same size though, and I wanted to keep the two pliers, kind of like with the Crescents, the same size as each other. And this would kind of be like, I would say like in line and or even a step up from the Crescents. I purposely went and got the Serrated again because I prefer having the thing to be able to grip the wire, to pull the wire, tug on tie wraps, that sort of stuff. So this would be another option for you if you didn't want the extended guys. They're, like I said, they're a little bit more expensive than the Crescent. Like I think that was $15. Those might be $30 for the kit now. And if these are, what, 15 a pop, roughly? Yeah, 16 for one, 14 for the other. I can have these linked down below. These are a great option. A lot of people swear by not this TR30, but that the 170, the micro cutter, because you can buy them in like 5 packs. They're so cheap. But they're much nicer than, say if this is $1 to $2 and this is the lower end version of this is $6, $6 to $8. I would take the lower end version of this any day of the week. And I could see if you're using them or you're giving them to a whole kit of people, like a whole classroom or something, why you'd buy like the 5-pack of them, and why you might we'll deal with having the smaller cutter, and save like half the price, But these Hakko ones are, a lot of people pick them up, especially the cutter side. And there are a lot of knockoffs. So when you buy them, make sure, because there's a lot of Chinese ones, because this Hakko cutter is so popular, specifically the cutter, you'll see a lot of ones that look very, very similar. And you can tell these actually protect you from getting wear things that you're not supposed to. It's a decent design. I'm probably just a little bit more partial to Crescent because I've used them for so long. But this is the set that I got my previous job to buy for me. You can still see their tape on there that I still have yet to pull off. And then other workers as well, because they're, you know, at the price that they are, they're a little bit cheaper than, say, these Pro America ones. But, you know, well-known brand, a common thing. If you go on Amazon, they're going to be like a very, very commonly bought high, like they can be like, oh yeah, that's a thing that people use, or any of the guys at the previous job would have known these, because everybody, this is like a go-to flush cut. Not, you know, like I said, better than this cheap piece of, you know, but these have their place. When you need to flush cut things you're not supposed to flush cut, you break the $1 to $2 tool, or potentially break the $1 to $2 tool, not the even $6 to $8 tool. So this is a 44, and what is it? These I've been trying to get for years, and oh, I can tell right away these have the thicker grips on them that I am used to on this guy. And you're like, what is this? Why are you so pumped? Like, okay, this is what I finally bought that I... All right, so we're gonna have to cut this together. Batteries died. And cut out the video. We've got this upside down because I actually have it plugged in while we're recording here. Oh, there's a kitten under my ass. I am sorry, Paisley. I didn't expect to sit on you because you're not supposed to be on this chair in the first place. My God. All right, so what I was saying before we got cut off rudely was that these pliers have the same handle as these cutters. Not the same as these extended pliers, though. All right. Realistically, when I picked these up, the extended ones with the very pointy tips, I thought they would be good, but I have another pair that I actually turned out to not like. So I was not too surprised that I didn't like them. But the pair I really wanted, which is the one on the left, was unavailable. Oh, you're so happy, I know. But I gotta get up and get this pair of pliers, kid. We will be sitting down shortly. So, this is a cobalt pair. K for cobalt. China. I just bought a cheap pair of these before I thought I'd try and get a nice pair. And I keep them around because they're fine for what they are. It just turns out that this sort of really pointy pliers that is completely flat on the inside, I just don't have much use for. And if you look throughout the entire thing, here's the other thing that's weird about these, and the other Pro Americas do a very similar thing. They're almost they close completely all the way through. That means they're designed for grabbing things that are very thin, because if they were meant to grab anything thick, it would, that's why you use like a slip joint, because if you're grabbing it out here, it's going to lose it down in there. You know, if the thickness is here and you have it pretty deep of a item, you know, like say if you grab this like this, like you're really only grabbing it on the little bit of points, right? So yeah, I should have known, because I had previously had this in my kit for building PCs, as I thought it would be nice to grab stuff. The problem is with how this jaw is, where it almost fully closes, and it's a smooth jaw, it's nearly useless. Nearly useless. Still keep them around, because why would I throw out a good pair of pliers? The grips on these, despite being transformy, if you look compared to the Master Force, which is like all squared off and like ribbed and stuff, and they just feel awkward in the hand because they're very square, this actually isn't bad at all. So yeah, but I should have known that I wouldn't like the this style. I mean, I've come to use them, but same thing here. If you look, they get almost completely flush. These are a little bit better, but like 3/4 of it is completely flush. So you can only really grab something that's like that thick if you want to use the full length of this sort of needle of the needle nose. But for grabbing and plucking stuff out of there, if you drop stuff, this can be quite nice. That like this extra bump at the handle makes sense because you get a little bit more leverage. You know, because you get that much more handle. But this isn't really what I was looking for. Like I said, I kind of knew that this wasn't. And if you look at the tips on here, and it was the same on the Cobalt, they're very rounded. Like they're actually pretty tall, but yet skinny, as in there isn't much surface area to grab things. Like they're tall this way, so that when you grab it, it's at least strong. Otherwise, it would bend back, right? Sadly, that ends up kind of awkward. Like you can see, those are very awkwardly like. In order to get like the vertical strength, you can see I've used these quite a bit too. I tried to. You can see like chips on the edges of the blade and stuff. The handle on that still, I don't think it's too bad. But yeah, so what I've wanted realistically the whole time that has been out of stock, I've never seen it in stock since I picked these up. Let's put it this way, and since I went looking, so probably a year or two after having these, I went looking for a Pliers variant. Maybe it wasn't a full year or two, but it was a while, right? Never has this one been in stock. This is their Snub chain nose serrated tooth. You see the serrations at the end there? Snub nose because it's like squared off. Like basically it could be longer, like this guy, right? And it obviously would not be as long as that, but effectively, after a certain point, they just whack it off. So it is a little bit wider throughout the whole thing. It doesn't get nearly as skinny. But if you look, there's a bit of a gap to the front, and that is because it does have the cutter right here. So you hold the cutter up, you can't see through the cutter, but because of the cutter, and because they realize you're going to grab things of some width, right? Like, because everything you grab has, here, even this cardboard has some thickness to it, right? Look at that. See, there's whereas with the skinny guy, right? As soon as you grab it, even this cardboard thickness, the tips are open more than the ass, if that makes any sense. Like, because if you want to hold it like this, the further down the tip you get, the more open the tips are. And see, I'm actually only grabbing like in the middle right there is where I'm actually grabbing with these. So this is because of the serrated. I basically want a pair to pull out or pull tight tie wraps and or fish out or fish around. Sometimes because I use those 8-inch longer ones, you have to actually bend the tie wrap a little bit to get it around something, or you have to like tug on it to get it through. Like you have to grab it, and sometimes you can't. Even my fingies are a little bit thick to get in there to grab that tie wrap. If I could get a pliers in there and pull, but because this goes flush closed or almost flush closed, and it's not serrated, you grab it and you'd slip, right? And there's just like more flex in this. This is the pair that I've been basically pining for, but they've never been in stock. I will link it down below. They are, and what I mean by never in stock is these I traditionally buy off of Amazon because they're listed there. They're a little bit more pricey off of Amazon versus buying them direct from the company, but it's less friction for me. Eventually though, Amazon doesn't always have these. They like sell out. I think the brand has to ship, like how Amazon works, especially if you're the manufacturers, you have to ship it to Amazon. They stock so many of them, they sell out, you got to restock them. Well, this brand is not like a hugely customer focused brand, so they must only send so many. So at certain points I had to go and buy these directly, and actually all of these I had to go and buy directly from Pro America Tools. Even directly from them, at no point within the past since I've been using these and knew about these, has the snub chain nose serrated with the cutter They don't have one without the cutter. I don't really need the cutter. But, you know, like, has this one been in stock? They were in stock on Amazon finally. 3 of them were in stock. I bought all 3. I will link the sales page to you guys. Hopefully they have restocked. Otherwise, I imagine you can get them directly through the company as well. If this is a tool you're looking for. But, like, yep, I bought one for each one of my kits. These will still stay in there. But, like, I have different quick access panels in my tool bags. This will be replacing this. And this will probably just go to the bottom of the bag or off into a different pocket or something like that. Because this still does have its uses to go and fish stuff or grab, like, you know, like really, or if you need a non-marring, like I said, this is smooth. This has its uses. But for me, this has way more uses, is the Snub chain nose serrated. Like I said, I don't really need the cutter there. Some of you may, because if you're doing stuff like you would normally use like a combination pliers for, this is effectively like a mini combination pliers, is what it is. And combination pliers are kind of like a less beefy version of the linesman pliers. I think the big part on a combination is that it has a linesman does not have the grooves of a, like the inner grooves that a slip joint would. I don't have one on hand around here at the moment, otherwise I'd show you. But here, this is what I had been using in the basement. You might have seen me. This is a Klein. I don't know technically. It's basically just a generic needle nose. I'm not sure. Wear eye protection, not insulated against shock, but it's got serrations. And because often it's because of having the cutter, because the cutter has to close, and if the cutter closes, you do not want the pliers to close, right? That gives you that little bit of gap, which is actually better. I've kind of showed that on some of the Knipex. This one is actually really nice. If you guys need a nice little needle nose that's like a 6-inch maybe. 6.5. This guy's ergonomically, you know, it's quite nice, and the teeth go one direction on one side and the opposite direction. So when you pull, they're actually pulling into each other. I know it says a D203-6, so that might be one I'd recommend. But that's what I've been using on PC building that I'm doing at home. Because I didn't have this guy, and this guy kind of fails at pulling wires. It's going to get demoted to, you know, the extra tool part/bin area. Yeah, I'm so pumped. And you're like, oh, do you care more? And then what ended up happening is, because of this, I noticed that Pro America Tools had started listing even more pliers on Amazon. And I was like, oh, I got to take a look around, see if they got some other stuff. And that is when I saw they introduced this guy, which is that thin head. It's not a flush cut. I would call it a near flush cut, though, because it is more flush than the normal, what do you want to call it, like an acorn head diagonal cutter, right? Lighter duty, but you know, I could see how this could be. I'll have to try it out with a build, you know what I mean, and see what I like. I do wish it had the bigger grips. I can already tell you that. Now, this may just be me talking. They probably don't want to give you the bigger grips because it can't take that additional torque. I'm just so friggin' used to using this one now. You know, that's why I picked this thing up, and it has the same grip as this one. That's something else I didn't like about that extended needle nose, was the kind of like, I understand why they gave you that second bump, because they want to extend it even more. That's why it's not like a snub nose either. This gives you more force, though, and a lot of times I really need to yank on those tie wraps. Or if I'm like fiddling it through stuff, You know, like I got to hold it on tight so I can like bend it around a corner, or if it hooks up top, I got to grab it and really yank it down. The serrations on here, they're quite fine. But way better than having a smooth, you know, like a smooth jaw. Sorry, that's the term there. And yes, for those wondering, when you have a cutter here, some people get this wrong. You can see light through it, like through this part. This is not supposed to close all the way when you have a cutter. The cutter is supposed to close all the way. I've seen people even like downgrade Nipex on Amazon and Home Depot because it doesn't close all the way for like a combination plier. It's not supposed to. Because literally anything you grab is going to have some sort of thickness. And also a combination plier is not really designed to grab like really thin things. Like think this is still picking up this cardboard, and that's pretty thin. You know, like here we're gripped down there. So this is what I am pumped about. Yeah, I have to keep these duckbills around as well. These are kind of nice. These are at Tsunoda King TTC. That's actually on. It's a deep. I thought King TTC was the model. They have other King TTC models. This is specifically the DBP. I have to imagine that's duckbill plier 200. I've never had a duckbill plier before and was like, sure, let's give it a shot. And actually, it's been. I like the longer handles with the smaller head. I tend to like pliers that do that. I think I mentioned that with the Knipex as well. So I've gotten some use out of this. Especially if you need to like bend things square, it's quite useful. They showed on like some nuts to hold them. It basically can adjust to like the angles of the nuts because it's a very square angle. If you guys have used duckbill pliers before, let me know though. And you can see this thing's got nicks out of handles. Like it's been getting used. I just bought it because they were advertising it when I was buying those Tsunoda cable tie cutters. And this thing was like, oh, the King TTC, and I'm like, oh, what the frick is that? I have since learned that they have like a whole line of King TTC products. Yeah, I only have one wire cutter now besides I have the Tsunoda cable tie cutter, but this is the only wire cutter that I have been using for PC stuff for the longest time, like PC and small electronics. Not like I have my nice Lindstroms for keyboard and PCB work, and if I'm over there with the small electronics, I will use those, but those stay at my soldering bench because I do not want me or other people to use them for things that they're really not supposed to use them for. Oh, this is the 4044, whereas the diagonal, the acorn style diagonal cutter is a 4046. And with this number being higher, the 4052, it is definitely a newer design. What was the long nose? That's a 4048. Yeah. So I got another one of these guys. Yes, I bought all three that were available because I want one in each of my kits. And like I said, I'm not saying American tools are made better, because these definitely, you've seen on the diagonal cutters, they have their. These are not like Knipex where they're like perfectly machined and yada yada yada. They definitely have that made in America to them. You know what I mean? But there are so few places. Like if you guys know of another company that makes good extended reach, I think these are considered micro pliers or mini pliers. That isn't like cheap Chinese or possibly Taiwanese garbage. Hit me up. I would look at it because. Or I would take a peek at them because these for me in doing especially PC building, but also small electronics work, like if I'm fishing in a speaker or something, A lot of times I can only have one side off, or it's off to the side, and I really need to like kind of get in there. I don't have. I can just put the tool in rather than my whole hand. And for a lot of the big tools that you might get extended reach, where they have like the double jointed needle nose and stuff like that for like working on cars, those have to be really big and beefy because of what you're doing, what you're grabbing, like that sort of stuff. These really don't, because there isn't anything with their size that you're going to be really reefing on them doing. But yeah, I'm pumped that these are finally back in stock. The old chain nose, the Snub chain nose serrated jaw with cutter extended micro pliers, or whatever they are. Pro America Tools 4044. And then, like I said, I took a look around Amazon, and then these popped up, which I'd never seen before. Which is the 4052, which is the thin thin head, I think they call them, extended diagonal cutters. There are definitely people even on Amazon that are into these tools, just like I am, like specifically these extended reach ones, because there are no, like, this is the good brand as far as I can tell, like, because so few brands make this style of product. There are reviews from people who reviewed these and reviewed this. So like there's like, they obviously also found the same as I did, that this was the best one out there, was worth the $20. You know what I mean? So they're willing to give this a try to see if it's also worth the $20. And we'll have to see if I prefer the classic acorn head, or if this thinner, smaller one is beneficial. This, like, I would say it's a near flush cut. It is not a flush cut. We would have to see how close we can get it. Let's see if I have a cut off tire wrap I can use. Here. Yeah, like, why do you want to cut off tire? Because we don't need to kill a good one. All we need to do is push this through a little bit. So that's about what these here will do. So, that's pretty good. Let's push a little bit more. I might have to put a little bit of tension. I'm going to pull it back in. Here you go. So there's a little bit that sticks out still. All right. Let's try the thin head. Yeah, there's like a whiff still on there. Less than you originally saw with the standard diagonal cutter. If you want to see what the Sunodas can do, it is kind of nutty, because they're actually even beveled out some, and their angle that is a true flush cut. So that's what I meant by near flush cut, is they get, like, you're not going to cut yourself on, I would argue, you're not going to cut yourself on these either. Like the acorn head ones. Some of you might be worried about that, but it's not like you're using like scissors or, here, let me grab I got ye oldie classic. Here's a pair of channel locks. A lot of you out there like channel locks. Here. Oh, I don't know what happened there. I feel like this isn't my usual. Here you go. You got. Because look at that bevel on there. Yeah. with something like this, you could take these guys. Even these guys, you could definitely take the flush cutters, but even these can cut off that little nub. So it's not a flush cut like those Sunodas, but that is damn close if you look at that with these. So depends if you need a true flush or not. Like I said, it's hard enough to find extended micro diagonal cutters or mini diagonal cutters. I would love a true flush. I thought this might be that, but they did only say it was like a thin head or thin jaw or something like that on the marketing. They did not claim it was a flush cutter. They are also probably worried about the strength because they've already made this entire tool thinner. What happens when you put a flush cutter out here, instead of like there, because you got way more leverage. So, and here, like for example, this is the medium flush. This is we went over that. This is the TR30. The 170 variant of this is the micro. That means the jaws are like that big, right? And that's like a $8 to $14 increase. Like it's a $6 increase in price of the pliers just to get like more cutting. And because of the bigger jaw, it can also do bigger wire. I should mention that too. That's why you want the bigger jaw. That explains why, like the flush cutter from... Apparently people have said the Icon one, even when doing... Because it says you can do... They recommend plastic and soft metal. Soft metal would mean aluminum and copper. They don't say how big, but I've also seen people showing that they get worn out real fast, especially compared to the Snap-on one. Now, if I actually end up using my Icon one as much as I might once I start doing networking equipment, and it goes, I'll warranty it. But that's kind of where, if you find out you use a tool, and if you use up a tool, you wear it out, that's how you know it was A, good tool, and B, maybe look into buying a better one. Like if you bought a Harbor Freight one before, or in this case, I bought the Master Force one before and was wearing these out. Like I would actually stock up because it was so hard. Like you'd go in and get a full rack. On good days, you might find 3 of them. On bad days, you might find none of them and have to come back after they restock or go to a different Menards, right? And after I would wear these out so quickly, and I say so quickly because like pliers, I have 10-year-old, 15-year-old pliers that are regularly used around here. Now, after about 10 years, they're starting to look pretty grungy. You know what I mean? These weren't making it 8 months. Like, they weren't. 6 max, I would say. And that was the big downside, and the feedback that I've gotten from others using them is they eventually have to replace them, and because they don't have Menards, they can't. That is when I searched high and low and found Pro America Tools. And this isn't like a Trump thing or Pro America. No, that's just the name of the company. It's Pro America, and they are made in the USA. And you can tell on especially their diagonal cutters. Oh boy, are they made in the USA. But they do make sure to ship you a tool that actually, like, back when Stanley was made in the USA, some of their stuff still might be, but especially back when they were made, like, it at least says it cuts and it actually cuts. Where a lot of these brands, or even like the Walmart store brand, or even the Home Depot store, the number of Huskies, why did I go and grab when I was working at Home Depot? Why didn't I grab a Husky? Because they're shit in many cases. Now, some of their stuff can be okay, but like, gotta say, Stanley knows how to make a wire cutter. You know what I mean? One of my favorite ones that I built over one summer for a school district, 400 PCs over one summer, 8 hours a day. And it wasn't just building from scratch new. No, rebuilding. I rebuilt Pentium 3s into Pentium Ds and Celeron Ds. 400 PCs. For every one of those for cable management, for the wires, cable ties, Stanley Cutter. Still have it today. It's one of the few tools that you gotta kind of hang on to. I also held on to my... I had a Fleet Farm, like, multi-bit screwdriver. It's like the 8-in-1 where you pull the bits out. I wouldn't probably use that nowadays for actually doing anything. It's pretty darn worn out. But I knew going in there, they told me I needed a certain type. I grabbed that, used it over the years. That's fine, but there are definitely better things to do. But both of those things hold you know, you think you're good at building PCs, go and do 400 of them in a summer. That's all I'm going to say there. You'll learn a lot, and you might start cutting corners as in, do fans really need 4 screws? That's debatable, right? You know, do we really need to set the correct IDE pinout, or can we just leave it on cable select and hope for the best? But yeah, hopefully this give you guys answers, or not answers. Well, it wouldn't be answers to your questions. I bumped the button because I wasn't used to the camera being upside down. What I was saying is, hopefully you got some interesting stuff if you guys are into tools like this. I really like myself a little diagonal cutter. Flush cuts can be quite handy, but the 6-inch to 4-inch like size is, I get a lot of use out of for the sort of stuff that I do, and I don't usually need a flush, and you do lose some strength when you go to a flush cutter. But hopefully you guys saw some options that, if you're looking for some kit for like building PCs or doing small electronics repair, or even a little bit of, keyboard, we're talking like single, dual layer PCB repair, keyboard building. Maybe if you do some Raspberry stuff and you need to do some pinouts, or you're doing some basic breadboarding and stuff like that. These tools will, you got some options here, and just some thoughts on like if you have a nice pair, like say you're even buying a Nipex or something like that, or a Snap-on, but you need to do something stupid. Don't use the good tool to do the stupid stuff. Buy the cheap tool that and wear some safety glasses, wear some safety specs, because like I said, I have had the Crescents over there when doing some dumb shit, hit and bounced off my glasses, hit off the glasses into Frozen Slate's ear, like the like the outer part of it. It's like, what the fuck was that? That thing came off at like pew. So I'm always equipped with the glasses anyway, because I'm not gonna say disabled like that, but I got the lack of the good eyesight. But that's like, if you're wearing a Dremel, or you're using a Dremel, put on something that actually wraps around even, or you're using like an angle grinder or something like that. Like I said, I've had a couple close calls over the time, and it's really reinforced, like, oh god, I'm glad I like naturally wear glasses, because that could have been real bad. I got a couple options for you. Like I said, I still rock these at the tool bench. I sometimes grab them even though I have nicer stuff. These I rock in the work tool bag, as they are kind of like an industry standard. They're not that expensive, and there are even cheaper options from Hakko themselves. Probably don't pick up these unless you really want the extended and don't have the money to spend on the good stuff, And these are, like I said, anywhere from like 18 to 25. There might be some as low as 16, not this specific one, but in their sort of extended neck, long reach, I think they call them long reach, micro or mini tools, they're kind of at 18 to 25, depending what seller you buy them from. Depending, if you get them from the manufacturer, I want to say it was like $9 in shipping for one of these. So that gets kind of rough. Maybe try to, if you want a bunch of them, pull them together. Otherwise, you can get them on Amazon, but they're not always in stock, because, like I said, I did do some research, and they seem to mainly sell to like the U.S. government, U.S. military, and people who buy directly through them. And need to, for whatever reason. So a lot of people, like a lot of people online that reviewed some of their other tools, their other pliers, like they have wrenches and stuff like that, they're like, the fit and finish, they always say, isn't the best, but the actual, like, because you can see, like, this isn't ground even, like, exactly evenly, but the quality of the actual tool, like the cutting edge and the strength of it, and nobody ever had a problem with that. It's more like the fit and finish, and that is sometimes what you get out of a US made tool is, you know, this part is made real well, right? The rest of it, you know, you might have somebody different dipping the grips one day than another day, and you got different size grips. You might have, you know, Jim Bob on a Friday making the neck here, but as long as it's not causing issues, you know, or Suzanne making these, you know, and some of these are this one's real thin compared to some of these other ones, you know. But like I said, I've yet to have an issue with any of my Pro America stuff cutting any quality stuff. Like, so for me, and like even just having to track these down when they started going $5-6, and with them wearing out as quickly as they did, it pays off one of those. But you know, if you don't know that you're going to use this sort of extended style, maybe pick up, maybe not a Master Force because you have to be near Menards. But you know, the equivalent that it look exactly the same. Some of them, I swear, just have a different colored grip on Amazon, and give them a try. They're really not that expensive. Just don't expect them to hold up for very long, because, and if anything, any of the finished ones I've tried that are like chromed or other finishes are even worse. My guess is they do this sharpening or something, and then they cover it, which is like, yeah. Comments, questions, throw them down below. But this is like I don't think it's like a small tool brand necessarily. It's just like an unknown one that makes some tools that I can't imagine. I've done it before, built a PC without these, but like given the option, I would not want to cable manage without having this pair. And now maybe the thin pair instead. We'll find out. Hopefully we'll see you in future videos, comments, questions. As always, I'm at TheProfosist, and you can also find us at our Discord if you want to chat tools. If you want to chat cats.